educational opportunities like that is what I would say. And that's where I was talking about like the lack of funding is figuring out, are there grants? Do I have to go through outside of the city and go through nonprofit organizations that could pick up these grants easier to help out with some of these issues that we see in our community?
Okay, very good. Let's move on to economic development. What strategies do you have to support small businesses and entrepreneurs in Hemet?
I would say that it's very, so what I hear from developers and people who open up their storefronts, so that your small business people, as I say, it's a little cumbersome when it comes to trying to get permits and 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 the such like at the city of Hemet. So you get this, it's almost like Hemet is not business friendly sense because it doesn't feel welcoming. So one of the things that I was going to work on, since I've gotten all this feedback, is a almost like a it's like a book that you'll be able to purchase that goes from idea to your ribbon cutting, and even who to connect with if you want to have a ribbon cutting. But that would be the Chamber of Commerce. So what do you need? So you know up front, you know every dollar you're going to spend permit wise, you know every person that you would need to talk to, whether it was fire, for building inspection. You would know why you would need or why you couldn't do certain uses in certain zones. It would be all spelled out in this book. And I think that would make it easier for people who are entrepreneurs, want to start a business, to know up front what they're getting themselves into, instead of getting into something and then thinking, oh, I'm $150,000 in for permitting process and I'm out of money, you know? Other things like taxes, incentives. It's the city of Hemet has some one-time monies that we can use. We can't necessarily use that for ongoing expenses. So I think this would be a great opportunity to, if let's say a Top Golf was looking to come here, or we wanted to incentivize a Top Golf to come here. If I could match their concerns with maybe a dollar amount. So hey, we'll give you maybe like $500,000 as a grant to show you good faith that we want you here, kind of thing, you know, to kind of, and we have this. So now we have economic I can't remember his position, but he's a director who he's going to be focusing on, and I've been feeding him ideas about, let's get a list of all of our empty pieces of property and see if we can connect them with people who might be willing to develop those properties. And then the empty buildings, let's see if we can get people interested in filling up these empty buildings. But it's all about these incentives that we could use with one-time money. Of course, I have to get permission from the rest of the council, but that's what I would be focusing on. Another thing too, that kind of breaks my heart is, I'm already doing it right now, but I'm trying to ensure that there are specific areas in the city of Hemet that aren't zoned for specific uses next to sensitive populations. Like, so residential, you could put residential in there just to make sure that there's some distance between some of these, maybe we'll call them like industrial zoned areas. That way, there's not, that way we're taking care of our citizens. So that's something that I would do to ensure that, you know, because if we go out there and we find people who might maybe want to bring a brewery in here, and there are people that don't want that next to them, it might, at least ahead of time, we already got things changed so that when it comes time for a public hearing, we're not getting a lot of pushback on some of these businesses that are trying to come here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does. Okay. How will your proposed business incentive zones help attract new investments to the city?
Because it'll reduce all of that bureaucracy and that red tape. We have this it's like a permitting process that I've been fighting for, and I think we're really about to get it. It's about to go online, where all of the businesses will be able to submit their, okay, we'll say developers and anyone who wants to go into business will be able to submit all of their paperwork online and not necessarily have to come to City Hall now. So I think that'll really streamline some things, especially if it's set up in a way that, you know, some of these agencies will, if they're asking for information, they won't even let you submit the application until everything is uploaded. And so it's something like that, so people aren't, what sometimes makes people upset is they'll get to City Hall, the person that they were working with is not working that day, so then they're dealing with someone else who believes that something else should be turned in, and then they get that paperwork ready, they come back, the other person's like, oh, you don't need all that, take it out. And then it kind of gets frustrating because it seems subjective. So this mechanism, or this permitting process that we're going to launch out pretty soon. I don't know the date, but we're going to launch it out pretty soon. That'll help developers and people who want to start businesses, your entrepreneurs, a more smoother process. So coupled with that book I was talking about earlier, so you know up front what you're getting yourself into, and then that permitting process, I think, should really help streamline some of our processes. Yeah.
All right, very good. What role will job training programs play in your plan for economic growth, and how will you collaborate with local schools and colleges?
So this was one that, you know, I really want this to happen, but I had an opportunity to go down to Las Vegas, and there's this place there called Container City. And all of these small little shops are made out of those shipping containers. They're stacked on top of each other. There's even an elevator inside of one. It's amazing how they put it together. In the center of it was like a playground for the kids, and so you can see the moms and dads able to go to the shop, and then the kids are in the middle, you know, playing. And then off to the side, or I would call the end of it, the end of the walk, was like like where a live band could be or a movie could be played. So a little small amphitheater with a stage. And I was asking the people about there, and they were saying, oh, the businesses that are in here pay less overhead than your regular brick and mortar stores. And so it got me thinking, because I had a couple of conversations about incubators. And so I thought, if we were able to create something like that in Hemet with these storage units, and then get our entrepreneurs and then partner with Mount San Jacinto College, then we could create an incubator where someone could take their business idea, actually come into a type of brick and mortar, but it would be in the form of a container. They won't have to pay, it's like $1 a month, the rent or something like that. And then afterwards, get them ready to move into their own store or their own empty building. So they'll be able to see like what they need to do and test the market, and, you know, in real time, having an actual store. And since it'll be an incubator, your time will be limited there. And so you'll have about a year to figure out what you need to do. And then maybe there could be extensions in there, but for the most part, you'll have a time limit to be in there and to see if your business is viable. And then I think that's a way that we can fill up these empty buildings. That's what I mean by putting something together like that.
Making it more economical for a business to run in Hemet then.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Let's talk about infrastructure. Road and infrastructure maintenance is a key concern for Hemet residents. What steps will you take to improve the city's roads and infrastructure?
So and people hear me go around saying this all the time, but I'll tell you, there's a type of reconstruction where it's slurry seal, and that just looks like we're just really getting that, I would say, that clear coat back down on the street. And then for anyone who hears me say clear coat, it's like that part that protects your paint on your car. So when we slurry seal a street, it actually extends it out another 7 years, the life of the street. Well, that's around 250, 350 a mile to do that. Then you get to where they do a 2-inch grind and overlay. This would be a street like Kirby South from Stetson to Acacia would be like a 2-inch. They would take down, grind it, and then re-put that 2-inch. Sometimes they go down 4 inches. It just depends on how deep, what's happening underneath. So, and then you have the worst streets, like I would say Wentworth, like across the street from Lemongrass, and even like the streets in the dealership are deplorable. Those range from, they can go from like 900,000 to 1,000,000 too. I forgot to tell you that from 750,000 to about 900,000 would be your 2-inch to 4-inch grind and overlay. So, and then we have about 322 miles of road in the city of Hemet right now. And so you can imagine, at minimum, to redo all the streets, we would need $322 million, just at minimum, right? So I'm thinking, if we're getting four and a half, not really thinking, but we're really getting $4.5 million through Measure A and SB1, those are two taxes, and we'll get like $4.5 million each year. You can imagine that I'm not going to be able to do our streets with 4 million, 5 million. Let's put it 5 million, 5 million. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to have to get the council to see if we can do a bond. If we can get the bond, we're going to increase our debt, but at the same time, I think the residents will understand why we did this or made this decision, or at least talked about it. And so it's not like I would do this. This would be like one of those citywide, hey, this is what we're thinking about, kind of important issues. We're going to see if the city will use its assets to take this debt on, to spread across the many years, and so we can catch up our streets up to get to slurry seal. If we can get to slurry seal, imagine only spending $250,000 a mile, rather than you see these $2.7 million projects. Like right now, Kirby North from Florida to Esplanade is scheduled to get redone. You'll probably start seeing that throughout Thanksgiving. But we came up, so from Florida to Esplanade is about 1.7 million. We had to take off Commonwealth to Esplanade because it does this 3 feet, it kind of goes down. And usually when you do this reconstruction, you also have to put the curb and gutter in. You can't do it without the curb and gutter. There's homes over there. And so if we put the curb and gutter, we're gonna have to figure out how to engineer so we don't trap the people in their homes, or they can't get in their homes with this new curb and gutter. And so that added another astronomical figure to it, which is why we had to take Commonwealth to Esplanade, because for a while we were saying from Florida to Esplanade was gonna get some love.
Okay. On the same subject, how do you plan to fund future infrastructure projects while ensuring fiscal responsibility?
The bond.
The bonds? Okay.
The bond.
All right, excellent. Can you explain the importance of bringing roads to slurry seal condition and how this approach will help save money in the long run?
So, to echo my sentiment, I feel like I'll hear from constituents, why are you doing the newer streets? And I'll try to say it in the way like how the debt people try to get you out of debt, which is they want you to pay off your smaller balances first. Otherwise, the smaller balances will turn into your larger balances, and we'll work on the larger balances later. So it's something like that. If the street isn't at an F or D level, the city would rather prioritize your less deteriorated streets, because we can keep them from getting to the D's and F's level. And then every time we save up for, like a couple $1 million, then we'll hit your D's and F's. So that's how I would say that.
Okay, I understand. Let's talk about homelessness. You've spoken about tackling homelessness in Hemet. What is your strategy for providing long-term solutions for the homeless population?
So this one, aggravates me a little bit because we hired, I wouldn't say in like 2021 or 2022, a 22, a company called CityNet, and they were doing really well. And there's a particular individual that worked for them, but then we opened up a position in the city for a homeless coordinator, and he applied for that, and his boss happened to be on the panel, so he couldn't go back to work. I'm trying to see if there's a correlation between this man's ability to build rapport with people, because it seemed like after he left, I started to see more homeless come into the city, or at least be more visible in the city than when he was on staff. And so I don't know if it makes me wonder if it's this man or if it's CityNet. You know what I mean? Because after he left, we still had two people going out there, but we were seeing an increase in homeless. And I couldn't, for a while, I didn't know he wasn't working for them anymore. And so I met up with him. I saw him at a downtown destination. I was like, "Hey, how you doing? I don't work for City anymore." I'm like, that's interesting, because I also see an increase in homelessness from the time you said that you're not there no more. And so he actually applied there again, and he's back working. So now I'm going to see if there's going to be a decrease now. But nonetheless, my plan is to, and I didn't make this up, I'll be full transparent, is I read an article about what Houston did, and I had the staff reach out to their staff down there, and then I had a meeting with them about what they did. And so basically they said, if you want CBDG money or community development block grants from us, you all have to be a part of this coalition. Then what they did was they got a list of, before they made the coalition, they got a list of all the nonprofits, and then they asked each nonprofit what was their best program. And then they lined them up. So it looks like, I'll just say, if the person needed detox, you get into a 30-day detox. Before, like 2 weeks before the 30 days is up, you are already enrolled into the next program, because what they were saying was that sometimes there's a gap in services, and then that gap leaves enough room for the person to kind of go, I don't want to do it no more. And so they were losing people, and so then they tightened the gap. So they had a person go from, it was like 2 weeks, and they're already in the next inpatient program. So they're still in an inpatient facility. And then there's the groups, the counseling services. Let's do your physical checkup, make sure you're all good like that. We're getting your humanity back. And then after they do that for maybe about 3, because it depends on the person, so 3 to 6 months, just like the Salvation Armies is in Paris, then they go to the outpatient. Now we're in a sober or transitional living house. So, but we're still doing our groups. We're still doing our AA meetings, if that's the case, NA meetings. We're doing family sessions to, rebuild the burned bridges, things like that. And then now we're talking about life skills. So anything under the life skill category, for the sake of this conversation. And then there they were talking about letting them budget with play money or paper money. And then they moved them into a more permanent situation. But before they moved them there, they had the resume set up. They already had a job lined up. And so they made all these partnerships with all the industries around. If the person had a background while they were in there, they got their records expunged. If it took too long, they kind of encouraged them to go more the entrepreneurial route, since their background was so bad, or it was going to take longer than expected. They got all their paperwork, IDs, social securities, all that. And then they moved them into a permanent situation, like either an apartment complex, or they still stayed in a sober living home that you can kind of live at, or they actually bought a house. And so everybody got credit in the city. In this valley, it seems like people, they didn't agree with the way a nonprofit was doing, so they branched off and created their own nonprofit. I think we have 266 churches in Hemet. And so you can see, like, I don't like the way this pastor was saying it, so I'm gonna go over here and start and so everybody's like trying to fight for the same dollars. And so the dollars are or there's not too many to go around because everybody's fighting for the same money. So Houston lines all these programs up and says, "What's your best program?" Okay, you're good at intakes, you're good at the group stuff, you're good at this, and then they line them up like that so the person go from homelessness to housing.
Excellent, excellent. How will you work with Riverside County and local nonprofits to address homelessness? And what specific programs will you prioritize?
So the cool part about this is it's not necessarily a prioritization effort. It's more of a collaboration. Let's make sure we're all working efficiently together and find out where the gaps are. So it's MSJC has all of the, they could do all the life, like the vocational type of learning certificates. You could do HVAC there, learn how to weld there. So it's having those types of partnerships and the transportation to get from wherever they're at. Another thing that was good about it was they didn't build new infrastructure. They used existing infrastructure. And so when you're talking about all that job training and stuff, the colleges were helping out, and then you had your banks were also doing stuff to talk about financial literacy. When you open up an account, what to look for. This is how so you don't get on check systems. If your account's too negative too long, how to live within your means so you're not spending too much, and then putting yourself in a position to go right back into the streets. And so ensuring that all of those people are talking, and it's since I've been on council, that's been probably the most frustrating part, is getting people to work together, because there are some jurisdictions that don't, they have their agendas, and I'm using that word not in a, I'm using it in a, they have their direction, so to speak. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, excellent. Now, my next question was going to be what role does job training play in your homelessness strategy, but I think you've already covered that pretty well.
Yeah, that's an important one, because that gets, the Salvation Army, I think, did it really well, where they, especially in Paris, because I was a trainee there. So I don't think people understand that when you donate to the Salvation Army, it's more like 90% of the dollar goes to the program and 10% goes to overhead, to the point where they have real estate. So they provide the vehicles for all of the people in leadership. They provide the living, everything's pretty much taken care of, so that the person doesn't have to get paid so much, and they don't have to have this heavy top overhead, right? So when you're thinking of places like Salvation Army, the guys learn to work, because the warehouse that accepts all of those donations, when you put your clothes in those bins, go to these warehouse type places where the guys go there and they sift through the clothes, through the lamps, the broken lamps. Can they salvage anything? Can they sew this couch's corner back up? Can they fabricate anything? Can they refurbish anything? And then they take it to all the little stores and sell it. And it feeds itself. And that's why I think it's important, because it gives that person a sense of, when you talk to those guys that were saying, like, I'm going to work and I'm putting my hands to something, there's something about putting your hands and being proud of what you've done. So that's why I think that's an important piece of it.
All right, excellent. Let's switch over to fiscal responsibility. Hemet's economy currently relies heavily on sales tax. How do you plan to diversify the city's revenue streams?
We need so the city of Hemet's hospitality tax is low, our tourism tax is low, even though we have this beautiful facility off of, I don't remember what the street is called, but it's across the street from Target. There's a mobile home community back there, but you can go there too. And there's like 1,500. I think it's the largest one in California, to be honest. But they have the pickleball courts. They have this community center that you can do all these programs in. They got a community garden that the chef actually takes from to cook meals there. But it's like a vacation, like one of those places that you go RV camping. type of places, a resort. So it's beautiful there, but like that type of stuff. Right now, we're trying to program or build some soccer, a place where a bunch of fields for soccer can be over, down by Valley by the Western Science Center, on the Valley Y Recreation area, because we're trying to capitalize on those like touristy type of dollars. So if we can raise that up, we can diversify because Hemet is heavily relied on sales tax. But at the same time, we're not eating here. We're going to Menifee, we're going to Marietta, and then because we all work, most of us work outside the city, we're feeding all the other cities. And then our city's struggling, even though we're heavily relied on sales tax, we get most of our money from the sales tax. And then we have to work with grants to supplement different things. And then there's issues with that because you don't know if you will win the grant again. So how do you keep it sustainable if it's built on a grant? So the only thing I can look for is finding those Airbnb dollars, the hospitality dollars. I literally want to get rid of every motel we have and capitalize on Hampton. Motel 6 is doing all right. That one with the vines is doing all right too. They're relatively safe. But the ones that's next to like the Gilbo Park, the two sister ones, those are horrible. That one next to Denny's is horrible. Those three need to be torn down. There's a one Vagabond down Florida needs to be torn down, but we need to get other operators in there or other developers in there to maybe develop more commercial stuff. If we can score a Costco, that would be a game changer for us. And I know that our median income wouldn't support it, but this valley is large enough that we have people who would be able to support it on the outskirts. So maybe not our citizens per se, but just like how we go to other cities would come to us too,
All right. Excellent. What measures will you take to ensure the city's financial health while funding essential services like public safety and infrastructure?
This one is, so we have this, they have this measure called Measure, I'm trying to remember what it was called before Measure U. I think it was Measure E. It was something before Measure U, and they tried to make it a special tax, but it failed. And then so they brought it back as Measure U in 2016 as a general tax. Now what's interesting is that so it's a general tax to be spent on anything. The council back then created two resolutions that pretty much handcuff this money for only public safety. I think it was a brilliant idea. However, and I think it's generated like $100 million over since 2016. So every year it does about 16, we'll say 14 to 16 million a year. And so each year, if you don't spend all the money, you get what they call like you get this money that's left over. And you hear this running joke across all communities where they say if you don't spend it all, they won't increase it. It's something like that, right? Because what happens is we get the 16 million, we deploy it, fire uses their end, fire uses a third of it, police uses 2/3 of it, and that's how it's allocated according to the resolution. It's in the resolution. It also states that we need to devote 72% of our budget to public safety. And then it also states it also states it needs a reserve. So the GAP principles or general accounting principles will say something to me like, if you're getting 16 million a year and you're not spending it all and it keeps growing, it looks like you're saving money. It looks like you're not spending it. But we can't program the money that goes into the next year for ongoing expenses, which is weird to me about government. But I do understand it when you're talking about financial literacy, because if you have money left over, you would call it like a one-time expense, or like, I'll use it. We'll put this over here, and my transmission goes out. But I couldn't use it to do some type of ongoing expense like hiring someone, because it's like a one time. It'll never come back. But I can guarantee the 16 will come back, so I can program the 16 for longevity. So making sure that we're not. You're talking about being financially sound, is making sure that we are not using one-time dollars for ongoing expenses, is what my real focus on was, especially for that money, because in the past the city was spending like that. And we for a while we were on what the state auditors list, and in 2022 where we were removed from it because we were able to demonstrate financial responsibility, and so we stopped that whole deficit spending thing, and we moved to what they call program budgeting. And through our mission, our vision, and our goals and stuff like that, we program or prioritize the decisions or what's going to happen throughout the next year. Here's the budget, here's the priorities.
Okay, so I guess that begs the question, how do you balance fiscal conservatism with the need for growth and development in Emmett?
That's one of those, it's almost like it's like telling your kids, we can't go to Disneyland this month. I have to be real with you guys and tell you, hey, here's a real life example. Okay, we are budgeted for 92 officers right now. We only have something like 72. I know it's not lower than 72, but I know it's not more than 76. But we're budgeted for 92 officers, so we're down literally 20 officers, right? The resolution says that we need to be at 102. So we're down 30, almost 30 people, right? We need like 30 people. We couldn't afford we can't even afford up to 85, even though we're budgeted for 92, because we're banking on that no one is going to fill those positions, and we're using that money to fund some things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's this hard balance, because sometimes people say, oh, we need to do this thing, and then we don't have the money for it, so we'll use this it looks like savings when we're budgeted for something and we don't spend it. So we'll use that, we'll call it the savings or whatever, to fund something. And that's why sometimes people say, like, you keep saying you don't have any money, but you'll pay for something. And it's like, because we're using the one-time stuff. We're not really using this. It's not going to be an ongoing service. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Does that explain it well?
Oh yeah, very good, very good. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but let's talk about community engagement. What are your plans for involving residents in the decision-making process for key city policies?
This is like the thing that I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to work really hard, and because it's getting that community engagement. I think right now all I can do is work with our elderly population, because my younger population is out working. Nobody's home. So anytime we have community forums, the majority of people who show up are our older population. And they're able to kind of know what's happening in the city, but the younger people don't, because they're at work. It's not like they have people to feed and stuff like that. And I'm not saying the older people don't, but it would appear that most of the people who show up are retired. So I have to figure out how to engage on the weekends, or on, even if it's a Sunday, I was thinking like citywide barbecues. I was even thinking in terms of, can you say the question one more time?
Well, basically it's, how are you going to foster the inclusivity, make sure diverse voices are represented in the government, and
okay. So bringing the people together through citywide barbecues, and getting people to talk to each other, and then offering an opportunity while everyone's there to talk about something that could be coming up, or something that's sensitive. Hey, while I have everyone's attention and I have you all here, here's what the city of Hemet's thinking about doing. On the screen, you'll see a QR code. I want you to open up your phone, click on that, not click on it, but open up, your camera, then click on the little website that comes up, and then what's going to happen is you're going to be able to answer my questions real time, and we'll see everybody's answers come up on this board. And that way I'm not waiting for them to tell their story like you guys are waiting for me to finish answering this question. And we're not waiting one after another, but everybody's answering simultaneously, and we can see real time all of the answers. So 78% of you say that we should do this. Okay, that gives me some good feedback. Or 78% of you say no, we shouldn't do it. And then I might go, well, what are your ideas if we don't do that, or something like that? And then maybe I might find out that you guys are okay with raising taxes, and I don't have to go after a bond. You know what I mean? Because you know that another cent of 16 that might equate to 16 million we can program into the streets, something like that. You know?
Oh, very, very good. Now, can you share how the Human Relations Council will play a role in promoting diversity and community dialogue?
So this is an example of the partnership and collaborations of using outside organizations instead of using city staff to do some of these community engagement things. The Human Relations Council is they talk about racism, they talk about LGBTQ issues, ageism, any of the isms. And they try to have people have different conversations so that people can understand each other's, either if it's a culture or if it's a belief. For example, imagine sitting and watching a panel discussion about and I'll use this one because it's less controversial, is religions. So you have someone who represents Baptist, Buddhist, Presbyterian, maybe your Protestants, your unorthodox, Catholicism. You have the Salvation Army. You have your Scientology, Jehovah's Witness, and they're all talking about their beliefs about the afterlife. And then maybe you have atheism. All of their beliefs about the afterlife, or all of their beliefs about morals and ethics. And then you get them all in having a conversation just to understand which each belief is, instead of arguing over who's right, just listening to understand why people think the way they think. And then seeing if we can come up with a solution on how all of these people can work together instead of working against each other, because it would seem like they all want harmony, but they're fighting against each other on how the harmony should be, like which direction should go. The same thing with the nonprofits for like homelessness and stuff like that. Everyone is like trying to be the leader and trying to get credit for something instead of figuring out, instead of going to start a whole new nonprofit, why don't I get in this other one and see if I can run my program out of this other one? And then we might find that the dollars can go further. But that's why I would talk about them, because it's not even just them. There's other organizations here. You have Neighborhood Link, and you have My City Youth. You have Boxing for Christ. We're trying to get a Boys and Girls Club, but you have all these different organizations that can, have the conversations that is not, because that's not what the government is for, to have these conversations. We as a community should be having these conversations. And so that's, if the government does it, that's another program. That money could have went into a street somewhere. So it's like, if I get these other organizations to do it, then it would take some of what people think the city should be doing and kind of give that power back to the citizens. Like, hey, I want to empower you, and not necessarily you stay like dependent on the government to define morality or ethics or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's talk about some of the achievements that you've accomplished during your time. During your time on the City Council, you led the creation of Hemet's first mission and vision statements. How has this initiative shaped the city's progress?
So it's the staff, at least some of the staff that I spoke to said it really makes it easy as far as direction is concerned. They didn't say this, but it appeared to me that Hemet was kind of doing random things and didn't really know where it wanted to go. when I first ran for city council, I looked on the website to make sure that my views aligned with Himmett's views, and I discovered that there was no mission or vision statement. So I thought maybe that could be one of the things that I could lead, you know? And so with the help of Carly Meyer, our past council member, because she was the mayor at the time, it was like one of those things where, and this goes back to the whole everybody's trying to get credit and the whole ego thing, right? I could have waited till I was the mayor to do this. But I had a conversation with her and I said, hey, listen, we should push this. It's not about me trying to be some kind of hero, because I'm literally not a hero. It's what's best for the citizens, and the citizens need to see some direction from the top. So this is where we're going. So then in honor of community, we had several meetings at the city library, and all of our goals, all of the mission statement, everything that was written was because of our citizens. We got citizen input and created this whole thing. So I created an entire document based off of another city in the UK, and then that document was completely ignored because we decided to go bring the community's input instead of, but I had this blueprint with the, you know what I mean? But it was just really exhaustive and kind of utopian. But we got what we wanted from the citizens, and that's why the mission, the vision, and all of our 5 goals read the way they read. So I think it's been really good. It's been going back to the staff, it really helps them with their programming. So when we set a budget, we say, hey, we can't go over 80 million, so to speak. And then whatever comes through or what they think should happen policy-wise should line up with that mission and vision statement. So you'll see in their staff reports, they'll say, oh, this connects with organizational effectiveness, because they'll be able to upload their permits and won't have to come to City Hall, so it'll streamline it. So the organization and effectiveness piece gets hit. And then we have the partner and collaboration piece where it's like, hey, we made an agreement with EMWD, or we made an agreement with MSJC or some other organization like neighborhood. It's not Neighborhood Link. It's oh, I'm so sorry, I can't remember this name. But on October 10th, they're going to be at Weston Park for homeless services. So we partner with them, and we're bringing out a lot of resources for the homeless services. They'll be able to shower. So some dignity stuff will happen if they need an ID that can be replaced on the spot. Doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, all of that would be taken care of. But that drove, so the staff was able to be like, oh, we don't have to waste the council's time in thinking what they want. They already set a vision for us. So anytime someone comes to us, a business comes in or something like that, we kind of have an idea instead of it getting to the dais and we're like, what is this? Does that make sense?
Very much so. Now, you've had success in reducing traffic collisions and vehicle thefts through community policing. How will you build on these successes moving forward?
So we have these cameras all over the place. We started, they're called flock cameras, and they are license plate readers. So anytime we get like someone reports their car stolen and they give us a license plate, we will check the database to see if it's past any of the cameras. We have been able to recover almost like $3 million in assets because of these cameras. And then we invested in some more. I think the company's name is Eagle, but they're more your actual live cameras. Whereas the license plate reader only just notates license plates. There are specific intersections like I think everybody knows Sanderson and Stetson that have an actual live camera. And then we've also, we have inside the mall is a command center that is watching all these cameras. So you can see like the cameras in the Target parking lot and the one at Lion in Florida. There's it says police on it. those are real-time cameras, and there are people watching these things live. So when something happens at the, I think it's the Walgreens there, or near that intersection, we can see what the color of the car was, how many people were in the car. We can rewind, fast forward, different things like that. And so that's really helped. We just have to kind of be creative, because some of the legislation that's been coming down has really tied our boys' hands to be able to do things. And so we just been kind of being more like creative on how we do some of these things. And so the cameras have been really working really well. We've been able to do stings, retail theft stings, and it's not just one. It's not. We're finding out that it's organized crime. It's not even like one person's like trying to feed their family. It's because that's what it looks like, right? But then we get these leads to these other, and we just posted on Facebook. Our boys just posted on Facebook that they caught someone for, I'm gonna just say they caught one person that gave them leads to a bigger ring that's actually happening throughout Riverside County. And so that's that's what we've that's what I'm going to continue to do, is make sure I vote on things that support that, because quality of life is another one of those. And that's why the staff is like, hey, we think this lines up with quality of life. And so, yeah, we'll buy some more cameras if needed. Or, yeah, we'll buy this thing if needed. Or we just got the drones. The drones get to the area before the cops do, which would help reduce that that on edge feeling that when a cop gets to a scene and they've heard that there's a gun there, because the drone is there already. The drone can kind of, especially if it's someone's barricaded in a house, the drone can check out different things. That reduces or increases officer safety.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, what accomplishments in economic development and public safety are you most proud of from your time on the council?
So the cameras, because of that return on investment so the city itself didn't, we don't see that investment, but the citizens get to see the investment, because they're the ones that got their property returned to them, you know? So it's like, that's exciting to me to hear that someone got their car back, or it didn't make it outside of Riverside County, because now all Riverside County has these license plate readers. The fact that we have a very business, like they're giving. And so when you hear about My City Youth, when you hear about some of these other organizations that need money to do what they do for the kids, you got people like not people, but organizations like Raising Cane's. You got the Grocery Outlet. You have Micrometer over there off of Stetson, Walmart. All of these different organizations, actually Buffalo Wild Wings in the same parking lots, they pour into these organizations, whether it's scholarships, whether it's Christmas presents or turkeys for Thanksgiving. I'm really proud of these new businesses that came in and how interactive they are with the community. It's not like we got a new business and they're just kind of like they're for and no more. They're actually engaged in the community. And when we have ribbon cuttings, they show up to other businesses' ribbon cuttings, and people get to know each other, and then they're spreading the wealth of knowledge. And then it also makes it easier for, like, if you have a child or if you have someone who needs a job, because these people are talking to each other, they'll say, hey, I'm not hiring, but Staples is hiring, or I'm not hiring, but Target's hiring. Does that make sense? So I'm really proud of those types of things. And I'm proud of our fire department. We need 3 more. We need 3 more. They do 18,000 calls a year.
Wow.
At 4,000, you should be thinking and planning your next station. We're at 18,000, and we need 3 more. We need one by McSweeney. That area's in, I'm not trying to put nothing out in the ether, but our boys got to drive all the way down from Stetson to get. That's a long, and then 4 Seasons out that way is in and both of them in high fire areas. So we need three. We need somebody over there by Stony Mountain. So we need like 3 stations, and I'm trying to find grants for us to get those stations built. We have been denied a couple of them, but we're going to continue to fight. Other cities, scored more points than us or whatever, however they calculate it. And so I'm also proud that we just got a $35 million grant. 29 million will go for affordable housing, and the other 6 will be programmed into transportation. Hemet's really trying to beef up its transportation. It was a culture shock when I first moved here from Oceanside, and to just walk to a bus stop and either 5 to 15 minutes later a bus shows up. Here, you could be waiting 2 hours, 3 hours for a bus, and so we don't really have control over RTA. They have their own board, but we're trying to present opportunities for them to do more in our city. So, I would say that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for spending your time with us today. We wish you good luck in November on your reelection. And this is Roy Michael, Channel 21 News, signing out. Please like and subscribe.
Thank you.